Well, somebody just made Mitch McConnell famous. Hi, I'm Scott Ott, and this is Bill Whittle Now.
About
And
time.
Bill, I had a chance to catch a little bit of each night of the gang debates carried out among the Democrats on some sort of NBC affiliate. And with Chuck Todd and Rachel Maddow and Lester Holt was there, and probably a couple of others sewn in that I didn't get a chance to hear. But I was listening to the debates more than watching, and I picked up on a couple recurring themes. And on night one, when they had this sort of randomly clustered group of 10 candidates up there, the name that I heard over and over and over from the moderators and then echoed by the candidates was Mitch McConnell. And I thought, well, that guy's getting a lot of attention. I wonder why he's such a big deal. And let me ask you this question, Bill. Nancy Pelosi has certainly become sort of the poster child for progressivism on the right. Do you think the Democrats will ever be able to adequately frame Mitch McConnell the same way for the people on the left?
Who's Mitch McConnell?
He's a senator from a state kind of in the middle, sort of east of the Mississippi.
It doesn't ring a bell, but I'm sure if I saw his face. Scotty, there are times when you just think that things could be, they're just too good to be true. I don't imagine that the Democrats are going to take the White House because of their nonstop virulent attacks on Mitch McConnell. I don't think people know or care about Mitch McConnell. I know I've been enormously disappointed in Mitch McConnell. That was ameliorated somewhat by some of the strength he showed during the Kavanaugh hearings. But generally speaking, I'm not a huge fan. But I don't know how you get any kind of strong feeling about Mitch McConnell, to be honest with you.
He's not a kind of a character that generates passion on either side. And the way that Nancy Pelosi is sort of out front and clearly an in-command leader, McConnell seems more like a backroom kind of guy who speaks in hushed tones among people who lack passion.
Well, I don't want to read too much into this. There's one possibility, and that could be they're setting up everything they can do for recapturing the Senate. Either they're certainly not going to give up the fight against Donald Trump, but perhaps they see that the chances of beating him, at least given the economic numbers currently, are not terrific. So perhaps they're starting to set up Mitch McConnell as the Darth Vader of the season.
Well, and this was the thrust of the questions, Bill. You hit the nail on the head, because essentially what the moderators were saying was, let's say, they were very moderate too. Let's say that you manage to capture the White House and Mitch McConnell walks into the Oval Office to negotiate with you. How are you going to handle that? So the ongoing assumption by the moderators was that if a Democrat wins the White House, still Mitch McConnell is going to be the Senate Majority Leader. And
then the glorious vision of the workers' paradise is delayed another century. Again, Scott, I don't think it's really. It may just be random. I mean, it may just sometimes a conversation just starts in one direction, and then everybody wants to get their opinions in on it. And given that there's 328 candidates or something for the Democrats, I'm sure every one of them wanted to weigh in on Mitch McConnell, but to me, I find that a pretty damp opening to the kind of firebrand campaigning they're going to have to do to unseat Donald Trump. I'm really quite surprised, actually.
Well, since you brought up firebrand, the Mitch McConnell talk that I heard was mostly on night one. On night two, when I tuned in, and I'll acknowledge I did not listen to the full debate on either night. Frankly, it's a little exhausting just keeping up with the players.
You're a better man than I am.
It would be like me watching a cricket match going, wow, something interesting's happening here, but I really don't understand who's doing what to whom and why. And so the second night, it seemed to me, there was a great deal of conversation about climate change. And unless I misread the American electorate, despite the Democrat candidates caterwauling about the imminent crisis, frankly, many of them stated that it was a more immediate crisis than the potential of nuclear war or a lot of other, or even just a regular conventional war. Do you think that the threat of climate change is enough to sell America on turning away from an economic recovery and strong foreign policy abroad and focusing like a laser, like these candidates want to do, on basically setting up a cap and trade system and getting people to switch what kind of car they drive?
You can only get so lucky. and then you really begin to wonder if somebody's not, setting you up. Please, Democrats, please don't make us defend our planet-killing policies in front of the American people. I can't tell you how terrified I am that you'll run a green campaign on us. Look, first of all, answer your question about convincing the American people. Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal took off with all of the grace of a 400-pound guy doing a belly flop into the pool, into an above-ground pool. A number of
candidates endorsed AOC's New Green Deal, although they did not mention her by name.
I'm glad they did, because everybody that endorsed it now will be whoever ends up at the top of this goat rodeo. Hopefully, it'll be one of these people that have endorsed AOC's Green New Deal, and then Donald Trump will be able to point out and simply say, "My opponent is on the record for believing that we should abandon air travel in the United States because it's killing the planet. I say if you want to go home and see the family, you should be allowed to do that. And if you want to go on a trip to Jamaica or something like that, you should be able to do that too. We're pretty different on this one. You can make up your own minds about that."
I can see Joe Biden's whistle stop campaign now to let people know that nobody should be flying.
Well, Joe Biden refuses to ride on a horse and buggy because the technology's not been fully tested yet. This is another example of a topic we had running for a while, and we haven't had come up for the last month or two. But again, it's starting to shape up that this is going to be the kale versus bacon election. Americans are going to have to decide whether they like kale or bacon. I'm going with bacon on this one. There's a problem for people that are running on catastrophic climate change. And the problem is that they're not starting on catastrophic climate change now or a year ago. It's been 19 years since An Inconvenient Truth came out. And inconveniently, while it may be warm in some places, I think New York City is still above sea level. And these
not
killer
financially,
hurricanes,
just literally.
Well, then literally is all they're going to get. But these killer hurricanes that people said would be coming, 5 or 6 of these, Katrina-sized monsters, every season, just didn't pan out. Turned out that the 10 or 15 years after Inconvenient Truth came out were the quietest hurricane seasons on record, although it did pick up a little bit in recent years. Look, the thing about climate change is this: people can directly experience a number of things. There's a lot of issues out there that they don't get to directly experience. They don't get to directly experience Obamacare. No human being on planet Earth has ever really directly experienced what that legislation is, because nobody's ever read the legislation, not all of it. It's impossible. It's 26,000 pages of subsection A, paragraph D. So that's kind of beyond our day-to-day comprehension. But there are 2 things that are looking to shake up this election, and both of these are perceivable by the American people. One of them is having more money in their paychecks and having more of their family members employed. You can flow that one over to the Republicans. And the second one is, most of us have heard that if we don't do something in the next 5 years, it's the end of the planet. And we've been hearing this for 20 years. Well,
I heard yesterday it's 12 years and then it'll be too late.
Well, it was going to be 10 years and it was going to be too late in 2005. And this isn't lost on people, by the way.
Bill, it occurs to me that there's a difference between the way Republicans look at the whole issue, let's say, of electric cars. Republicans, it seems to me, by and large, have no opposition to electric cars. In fact, many of them are saying, get me one of them smoking hot Teslas.
Yeah.
And the Democrats, on the other hand, are saying, you must drive one of those dinky little Priuses.
Yes. And this is why I think we're going to whip them, among other reasons. Electric cars have a ability to put out torque that snap your neck. I think some of these cars have to have artificially kind of retarded accelerators because otherwise you just break your neck and you step on the gas. And yes, I think electric cars are grand if it's what I want to buy, and if it turns out it's got the performance I want, then I think they're great. I love them. They're simple, they're clean, and they're easy to maintain. Now, I suppose if I was running against this green initiative and I was running against somebody who said everybody must drive an electric car, then I would have to point out that would significantly increase the number of coal-fired cars on our nation's highways, because a significant portion of the country's electricity is generated through coal. These electric cars run on electricity. I think they've got that part figured out. But what doesn't seem to be quite sinking through yet is that electricity has to be generated by something. In most cases, it's oil or natural gas. There's still some nuclear power, so some people are driving nuclear-powered cars. But generally speaking, it takes more energy and produces more so-called greenhouse gases to import a car from Japan than it does to actually drive a domestic automobile that's running on regular unleaded gasoline. The beautiful thing about this, Scott, and this is the part where they really, really are sunk on this issue. I mean, they really, truly are. Because of the genius of American engineers, petroleum engineers, the last 15, 20 years in this country has seen an enormous switch from coal and oil to natural gas. And that's been a result of a technique called fracking. We now produce so much natural gas that we're an exporter of natural gas. We may be the world's largest energy exporter in the not too distant future. Exporter. That's a lot different than when I was growing up with the Arab oil embargo in 1973. But here's the part that's really great in terms of the politics of it. The Democrats, I fondly hope, will trash Donald Trump for having withdrawn from the Paris Climate Accords. I expect that's exactly what they'll do. And they'll claim that he doesn't care about the planet, that he's just making America a rogue nation, a pariah among the civilized people in the world, when here's what the Paris Climate Accords were all about. Every country, and I'm not making this up, every country would type up a memo and submit it, and they say, this is what we would like to do as far as our energy goals are concerned. And that's what the Paris Accord was. It was a collection of targets written by governments with no enforcement and no real way to measure. It's just simply it's a collection of statements saying, of course I'll be there at your anniversary. But it had no meaning behind it. But here's the beautiful thing. There were targets set by the United States, probably during the Obama administration. Trump pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords because it was so bad for American business. And after America withdrew from the Accords, we exceeded the limits in terms of reducing these greenhouse gases that would have been called for by the Accords in the first place. In other words,
I think that's what the Democrats are upset about, because America is not willing to commit to the goals that it's already achieved.
Yes, it's in fact the reason the Democrats are upset about this is because free enterprise has already exceeded the emissions levels that the Democrats wanted to control. We're already well underneath what Paris wanted us to do when we pulled out.
So obviously,
they're going to frame this as Donald Trump doesn't care about the environment and America goes through the world like a drunken cowboy, when in point of fact, if we had agreed to the Paris Accords, we would be able to produce more pollution than we're producing now, if you call carbon dioxide a pollutant, and I particularly don't.
If you believed in free markets in politics, you might look at this series of Democratic debates, and there's another one coming up at the end of July, as winnowing down this big field by testing ideas and see what resonates with the Democratic base. The question, Bill, I guess becomes, and we'll make this the final question, is if they field test it this way and they come up with essentially a series of, what are those groups called? Focus groups. Focus group answers to political questions, that could capture the Democratic nomination for any individual candidate. But Does it seem to you that the Democratic Party in general is in sync with the direction of the American public, given what you've said before about how young people, if they were the only ones to vote today, would make this country entirely blue?
We get to keep Utah. This is why I am feeling so optimistic about this, not just because of Donald Trump's record, but because the Democratic Party, through its progressive vanguard of lunacy, has staked out so many positions and have been backed by so many Democratic politicians that they really are on the rocks on this one. They are either going to go full Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and you should never go full Ocasio-Cortez, by the way. They're either going to do that, or they're going to listen to these focus groups, as you say, and find that the significant base of the Democratic Party does not connect to these messages. And then we are in grand shape, because the laws of logic, which I'm sure they're doing their very best to have repealed by executive order, but logic basically says you either do one thing or you do the other. You can sometimes do both, but when you've got two mutually exclusive options, you have to take one or the other. And so where are they going to go? If they go with the radical option, which is what I am damn near 100% sure they're going to do, then they're going to lose the sensible middle, and all of those workers who went to Trump in the Great Blue Wall, people who wanted better jobs and who got better jobs, wanted more jobs and got those, and so on. Trump's going to keep those people because the Democrats would run on a party platform that basically says no air travel, little plastic bags on the back of cows, and the rest of you can simply eat cake while we sit in our mansions here in California. On the other hand, if they go for a sensible approach and try to pitch to the middle of the country, which I think is what Joe Biden probably represents, then they're going to lose the enthusiasm of this progressive base. Those people aren't going to vote Republican, but they don't have to. All they have to do is be disillusioned enough to not come out and vote. I suspect that's what happened in 2016. I suspect, given the numbers, that if Bernie Sanders supporters had turned out for Hillary Clinton with anything like the enthusiasm they turned out for Bernie Sanders in the primaries, we'd be looking at President Clinton now. But I don't see how the Democrats can have it both ways. Thank God. I think we're looking really solid, and I am delighted to hear that the Democrats have decided to carry the burning torch of passion, inspired by Mitch McConnell and the Green New Deal on their golden pathway to victory. I can hardly wait to see the parade.
Well, bearing this enterprise on their shoulders with a burning passion for truth and time-tested principles, we salute the members at BillWhittle.com who have made this show possible. We invite you to become one of them by going to BillWhittle.com and clicking that Become a Member link. So for Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members for making it happen.